So, Eric, I would like to begin the interview by you basically introducing my listeners and the other members of my podcast group to the idea of Helium Radio Network. So, before I saw the boosted post on Facebook, I had never seen or heard of Helium Radio Network. What is the Helium Radio Network?
Yeah, we're based in Florida. We're a podcasting network that has 6 radio channels, and we have mobile applications where you can download on Android or iOS. We have web players on our website, and we help to promote podcasters based here in the US or pretty much anywhere in the world.
So, what is the history behind the network? How did your station get started in the niche of podcasting?
That's a very long, funny story, but
That's fine.
for
Well,
linking your
why don't you tell? Well, please educate and entertain our listeners by a long and funny story to which you're welcome to tell.
absolutely. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version because it's quite long
Okay.
and
All right.
cumbersome. It's
Sure.
been quite a while, but we launched actually our first radio station, or our first at that time it was a station. It was Channel One. It was Life Improvement Radio, and that was back in 2008. And we actually at that time I was working in healthcare, and we were looking for a fun, free, entertaining way to educate our patients. I owned a wellness facility, and we really wanted to teach our patients how to be healthier and happier and live better lives. And I know this sounds crazy, but being physicians, we actually wanted them to spend less money in our office and less time in our office.
Wow.
We thought if they were happy,
Wow. Oh my God. That's crazy.
isn't it? I mean, at the time we were absolutely insane. Everybody thought we had lost our mind, but our colleagues were like, "Wait, let me get this straight. You want to teach your patients how to be healthier and happier and spend less money in your office?" Our thought process was this: if we could help everybody we could reach for free and teach them how to be happier and healthier, they would live better lives. But then when they had friends or family that were in need, they would send them our way. So by helping others be successful, we would be successful. And it worked. It caught on. We actually how we started was just a way to do our free lectures on weight loss and diet and exercise and all those different things on the internet. Well, a lot of people started asking, "Hey, can you talk about this? Can you talk about that?" So we kind of scratched our head and said, "Well, I'm not an IT expert. I'm not a safety guy. All these different topics people wanted to know information on." So we actually held a public meeting and said, anyone that's interested in having their own podcast or radio show, come on down to this restaurant and this day and time and meet us here, and we have a meeting. Well, we showed up and there was 900 people at the restaurant. We literally shut down the restaurant.
Okay. Now that's crazy. 900
Yeah.
people. That's crazy.
We had no idea that many people wanted a radio show. So we ended up, we did a little promoting. We put an article in the paper, so the local paper interviewed us, and we were on a local television station, but we didn't think this little podcasting, niche we had in our doctor's office would catch on. Well, it did. And out of that meeting, we launched about 100 shows. We had an IT show, we had a children's parenting show, we had a mental health show, we had all these different types of shows that were in and around the business of helping people. Our moniker was Enhancing Lives Daily, and it was a G-rated, family-friendly radio station. And we offered all the airtime to the public for free. And as we were learning like what to do in the podcast industry and learning how to help others and do audio and video production, we ended up growing this one radio channel. And about a year later, we decided it was time to add more content to our network and kind of grow a little bit. So we started charging for services like video and audio production and things to help podcasters, because we had to have this monster staff that we didn't plan on having to help others. And it was great. We built a radio station. At first, we were pre-recording our shows, but then we built a radio station right in the middle of our doctor's office. So you could walk in, and we had a glass booth, and our patients would walk in, look over and go, "How come there's a big on air light? Well, that's a doctor. He's doing a live radio show right now on the website. Go check it out." We played it in the speakers in the reception and all throughout the facility. So if you were in a treatment room or you're in the lobby, you could listen to our radio, through the speakers there. It was really great time. It was a lot of fun. But we outgrew our space and we outgrew the medical practice. So we had to separate the two businesses, and we moved into our own freestanding studio in 2009. And for the better part of, about 6 years, we had a studio in St. Petersburg. And we're based in Florida on the West Coast. And in 2013, we launched our second station, which was called, at that point, Life Improvement Radio After Dark. And basically on that channel, all we did was entertain. It was adult rated, humor. It was zany drive time guys, comedians, all those types of things. A couple years after that, we decided that we had 2 radio stations, and at that point we needed to have some kind of wrapper, some kind of presence or a network or something that they could operate on. And our parent company, which is a digital media company, is called Life Improvement Media, and our logo is a balloon. So Helium, balloon. That's how we came up with the idea for the Helium Radio Network. So I know that was a long, drawn out story.
Not at all. That was as a podcaster, I love guests who are willing to talk and engage with me and really dig into the questions. So that's exactly what I wanted you to do. So my follow up to that is, are you? So by the way, are you a doctor?
I am actually. At the time, I was just an owner of the facility. I was going to PA school. And I was going to, I had retired. I'm actually an engineer. In a past life, I worked in telecommunications. I worked in GT Wireless and Verizon and Alltel and all these big companies. And I was lucky enough that I was in the right place in the right time. When I was younger, I invested in smartly in these companies, and I retired at 29. And I purchased this medical practice as a way for my future, and started this marketing company, this podcast company to complement the medical practice. While I was going to medical school at the time, second career, the company became so big that I ended up selling the wellness center and staying in marketing. So I'm about 98% a PA. I'm about 2 classes away from graduating, and I just never took the leap to finish that. So it's kind of funny.
It's really interesting. Yeah. Well, as I said, so my background is academically in the field of international relations. I also happen to be blind. I'm a teacher. My day job is I'm a teacher. And what was going on was a couple of years ago, I was listening to podcasts in the disability niche or disability community, and I noticed that in my opinion, they were just not really open enough. And I'm someone who has a lot of opinions. I love educating people. I love engaging with society in this kind of open podcast universe that we've all created. And so I just kept on talking to myself until I figured out that if only I would push record and someone else could hear what I have to say. And the next thing you know, I'm answering people's questions in Facebook groups. And it occurred to me, wait a minute, this is turning into a podcast. And then I just enjoyed it more and more. And now it's a perfect hobby for me. So there are, I will tell you, there are, I know personally several people in my WhatsApp group who have shows and have podcasts, and they would love to be. I can definitely speak for them because I know this to be a fact. They would love to be on your station. So if someone's listening to this and they're a podcaster or me or whoever it might be, and we're wondering, well, how hard is this really? How much what does it take to really get the show on your station? Exactly, like, what is the process? What are all of the nuts and bolts and ins and outs of that?
Absolutely. So I love what you said about you're teaching and you're helping and you're sharing with others, and you realize you have a podcast. And that's kind of what we discovered as we were going along this journey, is that we were helping a lot of folks. And it almost sounds too good to be true that a network is giving away free airtime to help podcasters. Well, that truly is our model. How we make money and how we survive is by selling advertising between the podcasts that we air on our website or on our players. That's how we stay alive and we live and we pay the bills. But really, we want to help and support every podcaster out there. So there's a few requirements, like a few things that we ask of any podcaster that wants to join our network. It's really challenging. You ready for this? They go to our website and they click Add My Podcast. And they fill out I think there's 8 or 9 questions on the form. And that's all. That's it. That's all they have to do to join. When our team gets that form, they respond and follow up and say, okay, we got all your information. Here's a few more things we need. So they'll be sending a few files, like their headshot or their logo, for their podcast, or their web address, or their host, the RSS feed where their podcast is. Takes our team about a day or 2 to put all the information on our website, and then we start airing it. There are, full disclosure, there are premium packages. So if you want to upgrade and get paid services, you can. Not a requirement. But our podcast for life promotion is free forever. And all you have to do is just, fill out the form and send us some files, and we're good to go.
Cool. So, a lot of the other podcasters that I know, And I'm not going to lie to you. I by no means I am not a technical person. In fact, I make no effort to be fancy. So how much technical knowledge does a podcaster need of computer software to be able to air their podcast on your station?
Absolutely none. So if someone is capable enough to get their podcast in broadcastable version, and what I mean is they can get it into an MP3 format, through whatever software that they're recording their podcast, and they can get it to us in a full MP3 file, and it's legible, meaning that you can hear the audio and it's clear and concise, and you'd be comfortable putting it, on your own website or podcast channel, then we're good to air it. We do ask a few things, like, for example, if you have royaltied or copyrighted music, that be removed, because depending on what we do, have some channels that have music and it's paid for and we pay for royalties, but not all of them do. So if you're going to be on one of the channels that doesn't have the licensing, then we got to make sure there's no copyrighted content in there. Aside from that, you just give us permission to put it on our website and promote you and share it with the world, and that's all we need.
Right. So basically, in theory, if I'm understanding this right, in theory, a podcaster could fill out the form. They could then send you or send your team the RSS, and then give your team permission to use the RSS, and then basically your system would pick up a new episode that was dropped, and then you would air it out. Is that true?
That is 100% accurate. And then if, say, for example, you're on Anchor and you
Right.
may not be on a different platform like Spreaker or iTunes or Google Podcasts, for example, we actually have the ability to help push those podcasts to other places. So if you're only on one or two networks and you want to add it to a bunch of different places where podcasts live, that podcast ecosystem, we can do that. Now, we do charge a small fee for that. It's $29 a month, but there's a lot of extra perks that come with that. You get things like metrics and more airtime and stuff like that. But that's mainly just because there's a cost associated with it for us. So that's really, but it's a minor fee. But you don't have to do that. The free package has, all the other perks included, and there's no requirement to upgrade if you don't want to.
Well, this is really, really excellent. And I really appreciate you guys doing that, because I think that I've noticed, and we're also on YouTube. I also upload these to YouTube, and I've noticed something very distinctive, that anytime I or you turns on YouTube, we only see the monetized videos. And I was having a conversation with someone else about this, and I said, there's a lot of other videos that we aren't seeing on YouTube, but they just aren't monetized, and YouTube doesn't show us. So one of my fears that I have for other podcasters is, you're on Aaron's opinion, right? But what if there's Joey's opinion or Michael's opinion? There might be hundreds of other opinion shows out there that are not even getting heard, just because they're being overshadowed. And I think that's a very interesting fact and a very concerning thing. So I really appreciate you guys, giving that gift to a podcaster.
Absolutely. So what you said is 100% why we do this. So
Right.
we see the filtering and the censorship everywhere, Facebook, YouTube, all these different places now. And for us, what we want to do is we want to be an industry disruptor. We want to compete with iTunes and Google and Spreaker and Sound and Spotify and iHeart and all these guys that are on the internet, pushing paid content and premium content. We want to offer, airtime for the little guy. Last year in 2020, we had over 7 million users through our website. Our website averages anywhere from about 250,000 to 500,000 people a month through our website. We have multiple, I think we're on over 40 different platforms now for syndication where people can find our content. We help push it there. We have mobile apps, we have desktop and web players. We have all types of content that we push everywhere, and we have unlimited airtime. The cool part about what we do is we have 6 channels right now, but if we fill all 6 channels, we start a new one. So we have literally unlimited bandwidth. So as more people come to us, more listeners come to us, and we can continue to grow the network and add more podcasters. So we always are excited when a lot of people come to us, because we can just grow even faster.
And how do you decide, as far as scheduling, like, let's say you get RSSs, how do you decide, like, when to actually air out the episodes?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a little bit of science that we use, and a little bit of just trial and error that we've done over the years. So one of the unique things we do, unlike any other network, is not only do we have the on-demand portion of our website where people can go and download content from any type of podcaster, we also have a radio clock. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we treat all of our podcasters like live radio shows. So for example, if you came over to our network and we gave you Mondays at 10 a.m., every Monday at 10 a.m., your podcast would air, come rain or shine, even though all your content's still on our website. So a lot of people still tune in live, and about 50%, the other half of the audience downloads and listens on demand. So we try to offer that product, to both types of audiences that would like either do want to listen on demand or listen at their leisure. And what we try to do is group podcasts that are like subject matter or like mine. So if you're talking about pop culture, for example, we're going to group you in an area of time on a day and time where we have other content that either complements that or is in the same wheelhouse, so that the listeners that listen to the show before you and listen to the show after you will stay and listen to your content too.
Yeah, this is all really, really outstanding. So then let's say I have an RSS with like several hundred episodes, then do you guys only play like the first one, the most recent one, or does your system automatically just kind of scroll through all of them eventually? Like, how does the system decide which episodes to play out from the RSS?
Yeah, great question. So what we do is we have you pick. So if you came to us and you had 100 episodes, we'd say, where do you want to start? You want to start episode 1, episode 50, episode 100? You tell us where you'd like to start. And from the day you start, that's the first episode that we put on our website. And so we start there, and in each week, either in sequential order or whatever number you give us to air next week, then we place that as the second and the third and the fourth and so on. A lot of people say, hey, I've got 50 episodes, just start at number 1. Okay, great. And that's what we do. And a lot of people will be like, you know what? The first year I did my podcast, it's not relevant to what's going on in the landscape right now. So start last week or the week before is my first one. So
and then the computer, if I started at the top and said, okay, play the most recent, then it would reverse the order the next week until you get to the bottom. Or if someone else wanted to start at the bottom and reverse it back up to where they were, then it would do that too. Yeah, that's really good. Really, really good.
Yeah, you guys pick the option. We really want to cater to every podcaster's needs. There is a human element, like so much of our is automated, but we do actually have staff that jumps in there and makes sure everything's working and helps to maintain the automation.
Excellent. So you said that, so you produce a website. So then does that mean that the podcaster kind of gets like a promotional page on your website where the podcaster could send it out to their own followers to make sure people know and that, that type of thing?
Absolutely. So we build a couple pages for every podcaster. We're going to build what's called a show page. So that'll be a description of your show, what it's about, what kind of people you interview, things like that, all the links to like your YouTube, your Facebook, stuff like that. We build a host page. So the host is like your headshot, who you are, what you do, your personal social media or the show's social media. And then we also build a calendar page. So that's where you're going to be placed on the time of the day of the week where you're going to air on what station. Each one of our 6 stations has its own type of listening audience and demographic. And I'd be happy to talk about those in a minute if you'd like me to share.
Sure.
And then the last page you get is going to be like a podcast feed on our network. And then we take that feed, we build our own internal RSS feed, and then we can share that if you want to syndicate from our website. So you can share that feed, or we can take your other feeds. So if you're on all the other networks, we can actually plug those into our tool, and it just pulls your shows in from all those other areas and shows people where you're at. So we get a lot of cool, different, unique things to help promote the show.
That's really good. Yeah, that's really so. Yeah, and there's always a lot of debate about stats, demographics, geographic region. Where are your listeners mostly in the world? Have you created a whole global audience, or where are the listeners?
Yeah, we often joke and say it's 2 people in Zimbabwe, that don't have internet. We often joke because, a lot of podcasters say there's nobody listening, or it's somebody in Russia or Zimbabwe or somewhere weird, when we get our statistics. Well, since we've been doing this for so long, we've developed some tracking. We use some specific type of analytical software on our systems and in our apps and our players, but we also use Google Analytics. And then we also, the affiliate networks that we syndicate to, like Spreaker and SoundCloud and all those places, provide us with analytics as well. So our team, what they do is at the end of every month, after we get all of our reports, they compile it and put it into a spreadsheet and create a PDF for every one of our listeners. Now, full disclosure, because there's work involved, that if you want the analytics or statistics, that is our next tier package. That is the $29 a month package, because it takes our team about 2 hours per show to put all that together and give them. Now we are actually working right now on a custom piece of software. I don't know when it's going to be ready yet, so don't quote me on a time, but we're working on a way to create a dashboard so that every podcaster will have their own portal that they can log into, whether they're on the premium or the basic, and they can actually look at their statistics live on the fly. So we're working on software to pull that information into a dashboard and give it to everybody whenever they want it. And that's something we're going to roll out either this year or next year. Our development team is still working on it. But once that's available, that's going to be a game changer because you can look at all your metrics on the fly whenever you want.
Yeah, no question, no question. So yeah, and like what networks, what other internet radio stations can a podcast be aired out to, for example?
Yeah, anyone you want. So as we start to grow and add more podcasts, so like over the years, we spend a lot of money on search engine optimization. We spend a lot of money on Facebook and Google ads. We do a lot of blogging and backlinking and forward linking and sharing content with other networks. Most of the affiliates or the partnerships that we've developed over the years with internet radio streaming platforms have gone the way of the dodo because most of those platforms have gone out of business.
Right.
So right now, there's one station in Canada called VIP Internet Radio. They do share some of their content with us, and we share with them. There's a few others that are small, but as we discover new ones, we talk to them and see if we can develop relationships to share content. Right now, we push it to all the primary ones like Spreaker, SoundCloud, iHeart, Stitcher. We're also our music channels on Live 365. We're on Mixcloud, TuneIn, YouTube, Deezer, Podchaser, Castbox, Roku. You can find us on Xbox, Google Home, and Alexa, and a bunch of other places. You can find all of our content. And then as new ones come out, we try to roll them out to the new platforms as well. We're currently working on a relationship with Pandora. We've never pushed content there, but we just realized that there's a lot of people that listen to podcasts there. So we're currently working on pushing our content there too.
Huh. Yeah, well, that's all good. Yeah, I never, learn something every day. I never would have guessed that Pandora still has people who would listen to podcasts. But then again, Amazon Music is also growing too. Yeah.
Neither did I. But here's something I didn't even know. XM Radio bought Pandora. I didn't know like Sirius and XM, they own Pandora. So I think that's why they're doing it, to get into the podcast game. But I had no idea that they'd been purchased. So I mean, news to me.
Well, this is really good. I mean, in addition to myself, who once I have some free time when I'm not working, I can almost certainly promise, not I'm 99% promise that I'm definitely gonna see if I can fill out that form and definitely take a closer look. But I can tell you that there are several. There's definitely several podcasters that I know overseas who would tremendously benefit from this just as well as I or anyone else. One of them happens now. Here's an interesting thing. One of them happens to be a Jamaican woman, and she's on several different radio stations like all over the world, and she podcasts. Do you ever have any like copyright is not the word, but do you ever have any like friction, I guess, if you find out that a podcaster is already on a certain station or anything like that? In other words, can you work with kind of strange international barriers like that?
Absolutely. So, what's the acronym or the analogy? The tide rises all ships. And that's kind of our philosophy, that even if someone's on another network, they may not have the listening audience. The people that listen to our network may not listen to their radio station or their internet platform or wherever they're at. So we have no friction. Like, we're 100% open to work with any podcast that's already on another network. Now we've noticed, because our reach tends to be bigger than a lot of other folks, we've noticed friction on the other side, that if somebody is like on an AM station or an FM station locally or nationally, that the radio stations get really nervous about us working with their podcaster. But our goal isn't to take it away from anybody. We want to add and help syndicate. So we're wide open. The only international barriers we have is all of our staff right now is only English speaking. So if somebody comes to us with a German podcast or a Spanish podcast or a Chinese podcast, we can't air that because we don't know what they're saying, just because we don't have anybody to do quality control.
Yeah.
So that's our only barrier to international podcasts.
Very interesting thing. I actually happen to be a French speaker. And
Oh, wow.
I've interviewed a French person on my podcast in English. That was interesting because we had to go back and forth from my second language of French to his second language of English. That was interesting. Another funny you mentioned China. Funny you mentioned China because one of the other people in my WhatsApp community, my podcast network, is a Chinese guy, but now he lives here on stateside for many years. And I asked him that very question. I said, "So you know how China has the virtual firewall, and they can't get anything in, out, up, or down. Everything's stuck. You know, so Michael, I said, here's the question, right? You're here in the States, but you're a Chinese person. So I said, can you record a podcast here, reverse engineer it, push it all the way to China and help Chinese people to listen to it? And the interesting answer, no. So don't worry. You don't need to hire anyone who will speak Mandarin because you will never have a Chinese podcast. The Chinese podcast can't they won't be able to. I've asked them that very question. They can't get their RSSs out of China to other things. So,
Wow,
and
that's interesting. I didn't know
it's
that.
fascinating. I'm fascinated by it. And then I asked him, so what do they talk about on these Chinese podcasts? And because he speaks Chinese, I don't know. They don't let outsiders listen. So nope. They're the answer to your question, in case you've been dying to know. Yes, there are Chinese podcasts. And no, not a soul knows what they talk about. So
That's funny.
it's fascinating. I'm sure that eventually there will be some sort of a way around that, and I'm sure there would be Chinese people who broadcast in their language outside of China. But my friend was telling me he thinks it's a very small number. So
Yeah,
not
makes
to
sense.
worry about that. But now you know I do have listeners in Taiwan, and countries like that. But yeah, it is
And I
fascinating.
think you actually asked me a question and I forgot to address it, but
Oh,
we
I
we
forgot.
actually do listeners all over the world. So we what we do is we create an annual marketing packet, like a press deck, if you will. We put it on our website, and then we're actually going. We just went through a rebrand, so we're currently updating the current version, but we update it with a monthly sheet too. So we do give out like our top countries, our top state in the U.S., and then we're based in Florida, and we have since we started. So we always give the top Florida cities, just because we get a lot of advertisers and local folks who want to be on the network in Florida. So we give out those cities too, but we do actually provide all information with the PDF that you would get. You would each month for your analytics, you would see a breakdown on that. We are currently working on a really exciting project. We've been beta testing it for about 4 months now, but we developed, and I'm going to knock on some wood here because I don't know if one exists, but we developed the first podcast marketing software on the planet. And what we've done is we've created a tool to help podcasters monetize and market their podcasts. So it's kind of long and drawn out process, but the Reader's Digest version is we've created a tool that allows people to store information in a CRM on the people that tune into their podcast, and they'll be able to embed software with forms into their podcast descriptions that allow them to capture demographic information and market to those listeners, and do the same for sponsors, as well as doing several other things like text message marketing, email marketing, and e-commerce products to their listener base. So it's all encompassed in a piece of software that we've been writing and developing for the last year and been testing for the last few months. So super excited to roll that out. That's probably going to roll out the end of this year, but that'll be a really neat tool once it's available for the podcasters to see.
Okay, yeah, that will be very useful. To my knowledge, I don't think there's anything. There probably are softwares similar, but yours sounds excellent. So that sounds like a really good product offer. And hey, you know what? If it turns out that there are things like that in the market, that's good for you because you can create competition and have a healthier podcast ecosystem. So hopefully there are other things like that to create competition. So that's really good. Yeah.
I hope, yeah, because we love competition.
Right, me too. Definitely. All right, all right. Um, are there any what is the most unexpected or unusual podcast that you have aired out on your stations?
Ooh, it's been so long. When we first started this journey, I haven't done a podcast myself in about 5 years. I do a marketing minute podcast with my business partner, but it's a short, like, I don't consider it a podcast. It's a short, like 6 minute talking about marketing industry. but actually interviewing people and having people on, it's been a few years. Um, I can't think of any very, very strange podcasts that we've had, but I can think of the strangest interview I've ever had, the myself, which was a lot of fun. You remember the Dexter series that used to be on TV?
The cartoon, is it the Cartoon Network?
No, the murder mystery
Oh,
one that was like on
oh,
HBO about the serial killer.
I'm not. I must confess, I'm not up to snuff on every single on every
Oh,
single show. There's too
okay.
many of those.
That's
But yeah,
okay.
I vaguely heard of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was years ago, and I think they're just remaking it, relaunching it. But some years back, I think it was my first year or two, I actually had the author of the Dexter series, Jeff Lindsay, on my show, and we were chatting about the podcast, or I mean the series, and how he came up with the idea and producing it. And I asked him, I was like, "So how did you come up with an idea to write a series on about a serial killer who was nice?" And I'll never, to this day, I'll never forget the answer. He goes, "You know, my wife." And I'm like, "What? You have to tell me that." He goes,
Whoa! Well, I would. All right, and that's the part where you run. You run. You grab your
"Yeah,
passport and get on the boat. All right.
yeah." I was a little nervous, but I was around a lot of people at the time, so I was like, "All right, we're safe. I'm not going to get too stuff in the closet." But he said, "You ever been laying in bed at night and someone's snoring and you just want to smother them with a pillow?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah, actually." And he goes, "Well, that's how I came up with the idea for Dexter. My wife was wanted to smother her with a pillow, and I came up with the idea of a nice serial killer, if you will, someone who does this to help others." And I was like, "No, that's really funny." So I mean, I think that was probably the most unique interview I've ever did. It was
Yeah,
quite
I've heard
comical.
I've heard things too. There would be tons of follow-up questions I would have about that. So that's on. But then again, I've talked to a retired correctional officer at a prison who was almost stabbed to death by a MS-13 gang member. So yeah,
Wow.
you get some in. But no, your story was better. Don't worry. That was I've never had that response before to any guest. Uh,
Yeah, and it was
Luckily.
when back in the day. This was when we first started, and I was actually interviewing him in person, so it wasn't like I was
Oh,
through a Zoom screen.
okay. That's
I gotta go.
okay. Okay. Are you serious? That truly is horror. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
epitome of horror.
yeah, I was a little nervous. I was like, "All right, look at the time. Our interview's good. Our interview's up. Have a great day. Talk to you soon."
That's okay. That's terrifying. That truly is terrifying. But then again, I'm sure that people have interviewed all sorts of characters who've written those books. Like all sorts of horror novels. You have to wonder, what are these people thinking about in their mind when they aren't writing the book?
One
Well,
hundred percent.
well, now I know if I ever watch Dexter, now I'll know what it's based off of. But
Exactly.
that's quite a tale, quite a story for sure.
I can't think of any. We have a lot of unique podcasts. All six of our channels have unique themes, and they talk about different types of programming. And
Hmm.
one of the next things I want to venture into is number 7. I'm hoping I can launch a true crime channel. I think that would be a lot of fun to have like
Yeah.
murder mystery, true crime, and that kind of stuff. And so our first channel, Life Improvement Radio, which is the oldest, is all about it's G-rated, family friendly, enhancing the quality of people's lives. We've renamed Channel 2. That's part of our rebranding. It used to be called After Dark. Now we're called it Untethered Radio. So we tie it back to the balloon. And it's adult humor. It's 18 and up. It's sex shows, any drive time guys, comedians. It's more of an entertainment value. Our third channel is called the Pharmacy Podcast or Pharmacy Radio Network. And the Pharmacy Radio Network is all about in and around the drug community. We have pharmacists, we have drug manufacturers, apothecaries, talking about medical issues and contraindications. It's more of a medical based channel.
Right.
Channel 4 is called Care One, and basically it's all health and wellness related content. So it's about diabetes, exercise, weight loss, being healthier. Basically, it's all health content. Channel 5 is our only 24 hours a day commercial free radio, music channel. It's called Thermal Radio. So we play music oriented shows there, live DJs, pop, R&B, different types of music themes and genres. And then Channel 6, we just launched last month. It's called Six Pack Sports Radio, and it's all in and around the sports field. So we have wrestling shows, we have NASCAR shows, and baseball and football and all that kind of stuff. So all the content there is sports related. So I'm hoping Channel 7 will be our true crime, where we can have some fun and put all that content on there.
Excellent. So, where does podcasts in the disability community or podcasters who are blind fit in? There are many people who have disabilities, not just mine, not just me, but the other friends that I have. Because you were talking, I was thinking of all the other people in my WhatsApp group that will benefit from this. So, where do their podcasts go? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That would be Channel One, Life Improvement Radio.
Okay.
If we were to get enough podcasters that had their own community and wanted to have their own channel, we could launch a new one. We do currently have one sight impaired show. We have one host who's blind.
Oh,
It's
really?
called
Ooh.
Seeing Beneath the Surface. Peter, he's on Channel One. And he's kind of I'm assuming probably similar to your show, kind of like, news and industry and what's going on in and around the community. He talks about a bunch of different things. I know he just got married and had a child, so his podcast has kind of been on hiatus for a bit. But he's been on our network for 2 or 3 years now. I think 3 years. We also have a host who has Asperger's. So he is high functioning, but has a wealth of content and knowledge. So he's been actually on our network, one of the longest podcasters, almost 8 years now. So we have him on the network. We don't have many disability or, challenge shows as far as hosts are concerned, but we'd love to have them. This is a great space and a great channel to do it.
Well, this is what, from the bottom of my heart, this is what I've been looking for a while. Maybe in the past, I tried being on some other station, but things didn't work out. Maybe there was too much heavy lifting, too much technical stuff that I needed to do, or quite frankly, nothing personal, but I just didn't have time for it with my work. And I'm just the type of guy who just wants to create a podcast and then give it to someone else for you to be able to share with your listener. So
that's exactly what we do. That's exactly what we do.
Well, then I can. I think this is one of these things where I think you're going to be seeing my form in your mailbox, along with and these are people that I know very, very well. There's going to be, you know what though, I don't know. See, it's hard for me to predict. I will certainly invite you over to the WhatsApp group. I would love it if you could introduce yourself, and basically I'll put the video in the group and then see who else wants to come on. I can for sure. No problem. There's a Jamaican woman who has a podcast similar to what I do. She interviews people from all over the world. She'll be on that thing in a heartbeat. And she's a businesswoman, so that's
love to
really
have her. Well, and here's the thing, Aaron, you have my email. So if you want to just email me directly, you can just email me the link to your website or tell me where it is offline, and I'll go grab it and we can have our team start. Most people have all that information we need, or a good bulk of it, on their RSS feed or wherever their podcast is hosted. Where are you at? Are you an Anchor or your own website?
Yeah, Anchor. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. 90% of what we need was on Anchor. So we can go find your show on Anchor and get your information and get started. You don't even have to fill out the form.
Well, this is one of these interviews that I really appreciate. I'm getting better and better guests who really care, and what is shining through to me is how much you want to help others. And I wouldn't have expected you to listen to my podcast already, but do you know what my slogan is for Aaron's Opinion? Aaron's Opinion too.
I do not, and I haven't had a chance to listen to your podcast because I didn't know where to listen to it. So now that I know you're an Anchor, I can go find it.
That is fine. It's helping one person today, helping a million tomorrow, and that's something that I wholeheartely believe, that if we just do this, if we just share it with one other network, one other person, one other listener, we're truly changing lives. And that means the world to me. That's what I want to do as a hobby, and that's really helping a lot more people than we're even aware of, which is truly the fascinating thing. So yeah,
absolutely.
So what are your so besides terrifying interviews, apart from my terrifying interview that you're suffering through right now, what are some of your hobbies, some of your other interests that I wouldn't expect you to do? Do you write horror shows or what?
Well, it's you say this is a painful interview. This is one of the best interviews I've had in quite a long time. So I mean, you actually ask really engaging questions, or really great interviewing. So
thank you.
I'm enjoying this interview. So don't think of it as being painful.
It's sarcasm, by the way, of course. Yes.
No, I know. I was just giving it back to you. but I'm a new father, so I have a 17-month-old.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you. So a lot of my time, my hobbies and free time have gone out the window, and usually involves spending time with the family and doing things with my little one. I like to play music. I have a couple guitars hanging on the wall behind me. So I'm a little out of practice, but because I'm so busy with the baby and working that I don't
Sure.
usually have time to play. But I love music, love producing. You probably can't see it the way my camera's angled, but I got a whole wall of production equipment on the other side for so producing podcasts and editing podcasts and things like that is kind of what I live and work and breathe, day in and day out. But I'm a creator by heart, an artist, and love to do graphics and creation and things like that. So not only am I the creative director for Helium Radio, but our parent business, Life Improvement Media, I'm also the creative director there. So my day job is, helping businesses to be successful online through creative content. So a lot of what I do is just creating for brands and helping them be successful. That's kind of my passion.
Right, right. Well, that is really, really, really excellent. And where have you traveled to overseas?
Well, I haven't traveled much lately because of
Yeah,
COVID, but
I meant
uh,
before that. Sure.
yeah, I've honestly never been out of the country with the exception of Canada and Mexico and a few of the surrounding countries around North America. I've never been across the pond, if you will. But I've been almost to every state in the U.S. I've driven almost coast to coast in Canada. There's all but like 4 states I haven't been to in the U.S. I've been all over Mexico, been on multiple cruises. So I like to travel in North America and stuff. But once my little one's a little older, we're gonna start doing some family vacations over to Europe and a lot of other
Oh,
countries. I
so
got a ton
good.
of yeah, a ton of stuff on my bucket list. There's a ton of countries I want to go to. I haven't had time.
Yeah, yeah, I completely understand. I think that the only thing that's less bad, and some of my students around the world say, well, the good thing about the pandemic, and I say, no, no, I need to interrupt you. No, there's nothing good about a pandemic. You mean the less bad thing. The less
Yep.
bad, the less bad thing is that we've had a lot of free time, and some of us have gotten into podcasting. I got into it a couple years ago, just when everyone else was, and it was kind of the golden opportunity to get in. But I think it's taken me like a couple of years to really like get comfortable with it, really figure out kind of my niche, kind of my brand, my personality in it. Because it kind of takes a while to get used to it, even if you enjoy it. It's a very
Yeah.
strange thing, definitely.
And a lot of people get complacent. Like as you can imagine, since we've been
Sure.
doing this since 2008, we've seen. I can't tell you how many podcasters have come to our network and left. They're here for a month or 6 months or a year, and it's like a revolving door. A lot of them come and go. Some of them come back. They're like, hey, I'm taking some time off. I'll be back in a year or two. So there's a lot of people that we call it like the 1 year itch. They get a year into podcasting and they go, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, and they go and find something else to do. But it's a commitment. And if you can find your passion and really enjoy it, you can do really well at it. There's a lot of people I know that are very successful at podcasting.
Right. Sure. Sure. Well, okay. Well, that is basically a lot of my questions. What are some questions that you have for me? I always like to let
Well,
guests ask questions. Yeah.
you've answered a lot of them in this interview. Like I know what you do. I know where you're based. I know that you have a podcast. I kind of know what your podcast is about. And while we are sitting here chatting, I Googled it and found it. So I'll make sure to listen to it after we hang up so I can check out your podcast. I just really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and interview me and let me share our message and what we want to do with helping others. So I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So outside of me, if listeners want to get in touch with you guys, if my other friends in my WhatsApp group want to get in touch, what is the best way to streamline that process and for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a dedicated email that if I'm so full disclosure, I'm horrible at email. I get a ton of email. So what I do is I always send it to my team because I'm always cleaning out my inbox and a lot of times stuff gets buried. So if you want to reach anybody at our company other than me that will get an email answered almost immediately, email it to support@heliumradio.com. So support@heliumradio.com goes right to our tech team. So if you have a question about onboarding or wanting to know more about any of our programs, you can email there. We have someone that works that email box 24 hours a day. It'll get back to you really quick. It opens a support ticket and our team manages it. We have a live chat widget. So there's a chat widget on our website, a button that says help. So if you go to our website, click on help, You can ask a question right away. That also goes to our tech team. If you're old fashioned and you want to use the phone and you want to call us, we have a toll free number. It's 833, the number 4, and then Helium. So Helium just spelled out on your dial pad. That'll get right to our phone tree, and then you can just hit 0 and speak to customer service. Now, someone only mans that phone between 10 and 6, Monday to Friday. So if you call outside of that hours, you leave a voicemail, someone will get back to you. On our team, you can always email me direct if you want. I have a slightly different email from Helium. It's eric@lifeimprovementmedia.com, ERIK. Or you can call the Helium phone number and just hit 0, and then they can forward me the voicemail, and that can route right to my phone as well. So either way, any of those work for you. We're always here available to speak with someone, and reach out any way you like.
Perfect. I always like to ask this final question. You've been I say this with every guest, but I mean it. You really have been this has been one of the most interesting and one of the most positive interviews. As a podcaster, sometimes you get interviews that, quite frankly, I've told a lot of really sad stories here too. So a podcast is not always a happy, but you in particular have been incredibly willing, and I really appreciate that. So if you can ask me, only one question to really make me sweat to see if I'm worth my salt, what do you really want to know?
What do I really want to know?
Yeah, about me. Really make me sweat. Really see if I'm worth my salt.
Well, let me ask you this. I'll ask you, since you were so nice and positive to me, what drives you to want to help others with podcasting? Why has that become your passion?
Because I see that as a successful blind person, I'm concerned that nearly 70% of people who are blind or visually impaired are unemployed or underemployed. I'm concerned that they do not have a voice. I'm concerned that they, in many cases, live in various forms of fear. In many cases, face profound discrimination, more than you could be or are aware of. Not saying that you are not aware of that, but you probably are not aware of the level of profound discrimination that the disability community faces. And quite frankly, I'm fed up and I have opinions. And it's time where we really start to help people and educate people in a positive and in an uplifting and upbeat way. And I think that the only way to do that is to speak up and to have a podcast.
I think that is an amazing mission, and I would love to help you any way I can. I really would. I'd love to give anyone in that realm that's having issues or wants to have a podcast or anything I can do. If there's PSAs that we can play to drive attention to specific charities or causes or things that would help that, anything we can do to help support that cause, I'd love to help you. So, I think that's a noble quest, and it sounds like you're already on your way to doing it. So any way I can help, I'd love to.
Well, this has been perfect. We will certainly, this is certainly not the last time. You haven't gotten rid of me this easily. Of course.
I'm gonna have to change my phone number is what you're saying, right?
Luckily, I haven't written any horror shows on HBO or anything like that, so you don't have to be that scared. But I am sure that some of my friends will really appreciate this. Eric from the Helium Radio Network. Guys, this is definitely a great place to check out. Thanks so much, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. All right, bye.